One of the big concerns that I hear from my families is, how do I prepare my child for daycare? Or maybe your child is already in daycare, but you just want to know how to support them better. So for example, maybe your little one is pushing other kids or getting pushed a lot, and maybe you're finding that their relationships are a bit aversive with their peers. Or maybe dropping your child off at daycare is always a challenge because they're crying or holding on to you, and you're sick and tired of feeling like a negligent parent. Whatever that is, whatever your concern is, this is going to be a wonderful video for you. I'm going to be sharing some gentle solutions that will support your child through that transition into daycare. Now, the first thing that I want to recommend to you is that you get to know the school, get to know the staff. Who is going to be working with your child? What are their names? What kind of activities do they enjoy doing with the kids? And what do you think the routine of the day is going to be? Are they going to be spending a lot of time outside? Have a look at the playground. Does the playground have a really big sandbox where all the children do digging and getting their shovels out and having fun and getting messy? Now, if you see that there is a sandbox in the playground, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, my daughter doesn't like playing in the sand. She really doesn't like getting her fingers dirty. This is a great start. The fact that you have noticed that and made that connection means now you know what to work on at home. So it's time to take her to the playground. It's time to take her out into the backyard or take her to the beach and play in the sand and get her ready for success. The more that you do these kinds of very simple techniques, you're gonna find that her transition is a lot easier. So that's the first thing that I want you to do when preparing your child into daycare, is just having a visit, having an eye out, and getting to know the staff members so you can find areas that you can support your child better. So now that you've spent some time with the school, you've gotten to know the staff a little bit, and you're getting some ideas of how to support your child in activities around the house for daycare, now you're ready for the second step. The second thing I want you to start considering doing is priming your child's brain for success. What does that mean? Basically, that means that we want to start creating images of positive thinking in our child's brain. Sometimes what happens is when they're experiencing something new, they might feel a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of stress around something because they haven't experienced it before. It's new and unfamiliar territory. So by supporting them through beautiful images of what's to come, you're going to find that they are much more likely to enjoy themselves even through the transitional process, because they're now focusing on something positive rather than something that might scare them or worry them. So let me give you an example. If you find that your child struggles on going to a birthday party or maybe going to a play date, and maybe there's a little bit of tension going on, and maybe he cries a little bit before you guys leave the house or the night before, if you find that this is something that your child is experiencing, and basically these are signs of maybe some anxiety of future events, then I really want to encourage you to start priming their brain by talking about what they're looking forward to. What are they most excited about, either in daycare or maybe that birthday party on the weekend that they seem to be stressing about? What are they looking forward to? How about some chocolate cake? How about some fun games and painting our faces and popping balloons? There's all kinds of fun stuff that you can draw their attention to rather than focusing on whatever that fear is that they have. When you start to do this all the time consistently, you're going to find that your child will begin to regulate those big emotions, because now they're starting to think about what to look forward to rather than dreading what they're afraid of. Another great way to reinforce this is to get a poster out and actually draw these things. Maybe you can draw your son or daughter eating chocolate cake and getting all messy. Or if your child is looking forward to a friend at daycare, but they're scared of daycare itself, maybe it's time to have that friend over and have a play date at home and pretend you're in daycare and just go through some of the silly little routines that they might have at daycare, like circle time, singing songs and reading stories, but with their friend. Now they have a motivator. Now they have someone to look forward to when they get to school. And you might find that they're a lot more comfortable transitioning as soon as they see that friend there. So hopefully this is a good example of how you can start to prime your child's brain for success at daycare. One of the big concerns about going into daycare is your child's ability to make friends. And maybe you're worried that, well, my child is a bit rough sometimes with some of the kids at school, or maybe they have a really hard time because people are always taking their toys and they don't know how to cope with these things. That's why the third thing that I want to share with you is how to build some resilience at home through fun activities. Now, in order for this to be successful, that means that you need to get on the floor with your kids and make intentional time to teach these things. Now, resilience resilience comes from self-soothing. Now, when a child is able to soothe themselves, really all of that means is that they know who they are and they have a definition of their own values. But how do we go about teaching these things? A great way to teach these things is through empathy games. Games that evoke empathy by teaching your child how to recognize somebody else's feelings in the moment, and maybe doing some turn-taking activities that get them into the practice of what sharing looks like. But lastly, you really want to be focusing on making sure your child experiences true ownership. When your child experiences true ownership, only then can they experience generosity and giving away of items. Now, why those areas are so important that we talked about is they all lead to healthy, fulfilling relationships at school. So if you think that your child is struggling in this area, maybe they're struggling to make friends, or maybe the preschool staff have mentioned to you that your child is a little aggressive, or maybe they're having a hard time coping, maybe sitting down at group time. This is going to be a wonderful way to prime your child and prepare them for daycare in these areas. So I want you to go check out some of our activities in our Creating Healthy Friendships videos in our Kiindred series. You're going to find amazing practical ways that you as a family can build these things through fun and games. While transitioning and building friendships at school is very important, I also want to get down to the nitty-gritty of helping your child be successful with the new classroom routine. So in order for your child to do really, really well, there's 3 big areas that you want to be thinking about. The first one that we're going to go through is instructional control. I know that sounds like a really square name. All that is a fancy term for listening and obedience. So if your child is an excellent listener, then they're going to thrive in preschool and daycare. However, if you find that your child takes a little bit longer than 5 or 10 seconds to do what you ask, or maybe you have to repeat yourself a whole lot of times and chase them down to get them to listen, most likely they're going to struggle. The reason why this is come daycare time, that staff member is going to be telling 20 kids to get their hats and to put their sunscreen on and get in line before we go outside. That's a lot of different demands being placed on a lot of different ears, which means that your child might get lost in the mix. If they're not used to listening the first time or the second time, then you might find that they really struggle, which means that they're going to miss out on all kinds of opportunities and connections to be made when they're a better listener. So what I want you to do is, if you think, you know what, my kid really struggles with obedience and listening at home, so they might struggle with it at daycare as well, then I want to encourage you to start targeting their motivation a little bit more often, making those strong connections that lead to much faster listening. An easy way that you can do this is introducing first-then statements. I've talked about this before in some of my other videos, and a great example of this is, let's say that your child is jumping on the bed, but you really need them to put their shoes on and get in the car. A great way to get them motivated to get in the car is to say, oh, you want to jump on the bed? No problem, buddy, but first, put your shoes on, then you can have a quick jump, and then we're going to get in the car. As soon as your child regulates those actions, puts on their shoes, give them a quick 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go get in the car. And you're going to find that they are much more fluid in their actions. They're much more likely to listen to you because you've done something as allies and you've remained connected through the experience by using a first then, rather than saying, no, not now, it's time to get in the car. All right, so if your child is struggling with overall obedience at home, then you definitely want to use this tool to set them up for success in daycare. The next thing that you want to be thinking about with keeping your child successful with the new classroom routine is being able to sit in a group. I have heard so many times from families that go, my child never sits down for music lessons, or my child never sits down for a story. If that's the case, you might find that they really struggle to adapt to daycare. During daycare routines, there's usually 2 to 3 times a day that they're sitting in a group circle, singing songs, reading stories, and sharing conversation pieces. Now, in order for your child to be very successful in this, you really want to start practicing this stuff at home. So in addition to building obedience and listening, which we've just talked about, in addition to that, you really want to start reframing activities at home that model after school. So for example, if your child struggles with reading a story to you, then I want you to set aside time to intentionally read stories and make sure that it's paired with motivation. Make sure it's fun and silly for your child and ask a lot of questions. Get those conversation skills up simply so they have some experience before they get into the classroom. You might find that just taking a few minutes every day to read 2 to 3 quick stories that your child enjoys might be just enough to get them used to sitting in a group at daycare. And that will set them up for such great success and make it so much easier for them during transitioning time. The third thing that you want to be considering when adjusting your child to the new classroom routine is the fact that they're going to be doing a lot of tabletop activities. Now, right now, your toddler or 3-year-old might not have a lot of experience sitting at the table and doing an academic activity. I want to encourage you to start introducing fun activity sheets that you can do at the table. This can be stickers and cutting and stamps and all of those wonderful age-appropriate activities that your child will enjoy engaging in. By sitting down with them and going through it and modeling them a little bit, and then making sure that there's some motivation involved. Make sure there's a lot of high fives and a lot of praise for all of their effort. But by setting aside time to do these activities and intentionally making sure that your child stays seated and completes the activity, then you're going to find that your child is really primed for success at school. Daycare has a lot of table time activities. We do painting, stickers, cutouts, all of those things which require a lot of motor skills. So your child, in order to be successful and not too overwhelmed or too stressed out because I can't cut yet or I can't write my name yet, I would encourage you to practice these things at home just to set them up for success and give them that extra bit of confidence going into daycare.